it is very human to think about our own mortality.
Yes.
Is this like a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is this like a curse? Is this like, I think all of these things just start to they go through my head all the time. And I mean, is this normal? Well, it's another year in the history books. So I decided to pull a page out of my baby book from my first birthday. And ironically, my dad wrote something here on the bottom. So I had a party with my daddy, mommy, Nana, and Pop-Pop Schmidt. I received nice presents and I gave out cake. Angel food with divinity icing. What is divinity icing? I have no idea. And champagne to my friends. Clearly, I didn't think of that at 1 year old. But interesting, this is me at my first birthday party with my mama. And for those of you that can't see it, I was a cute kid. Oh, man. Then, this is a picture that I took of my mother. Isn't she beautiful? This is probably one of the last pictures. Well, I took this picture, and this is probably one of the last pictures of her ever alive. She was 44 years old, and as of today, so am I.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in Richland County history. Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife Noreen and burying her body in the basement of his new home in Erie, Pennsylvania.
The 12-year-old son finally took the stand.
As I heard a scream, I heard a thud. It was about this loud.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. This podcast serves as a type of therapy and reconciliation for myself, and it is my hope that it helps anyone who has experienced deception, betrayal, and dark trauma. I'm Collier Landry, and this is Moving Past Murder. And I just want to say a big thank you to all my people out there that have been tuning in. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern time. I go on IG Live every Tuesday to discuss the latest episode of Moving Past Murder. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. That's on my Instagram channel at Collier Landry. Check it out. I appreciate it. Brenda, welcome back. Here we are.
Hey, yes, I'm excited to be chatting today because you have a really interesting subject today that I'm glad I'm part of.
So one of the things I want to do in the show every week is you guys, my people, reach out to me when you see the episodes, and you reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter, and I get these DMs. I want you to know that I read what you guys write me. So this week, a guy named Stephen Kerfus wrote me, and I'm going to read you what he says, Brenda.
Okay.
So he said, Collier, I know you don't remember me, but I used to wait on you and your mother when I was a manager at Brooks Brothers in the late 80s. The two of you would visit the City Center store in Columbus, Ohio. I remember your mother so fondly. She was a bundle of energy bouncing around with her ponytail. You can imagine my shock when I opened up the newspaper one day and saw that your mother's life had been taken. I look forward to following your podcast. Thank you, Stephen Kerfus, for reaching out. I get your messages, and Brenda, it's really amazing when people reach out to me and they have these like really fun little stories about my mother. I mean, look, this guy worked at Brooks Brothers. My mother used to love to go to Brooks Brothers, and my mother loved to shop, right?
Yes.
So, and I think we've established that.
We have talked about that.
It's really wonderful when I hear these stories come through of the way that she impacted people, just like he's talking about your mother's ponytail, bouncing around. And it's always amazing to hear how she impacted people's lives. Even it's like, okay, the guy works at a department store. Like, you wouldn't think that was a big situation, but obviously her presence really really left an impact on her. And heartbreaking as it is, I suppose, because they find out that she was killed, and
Right.
there's another light in the universe that has gone out. It when I hear these stories, it makes me really happy. And
Yes.
and so reading something like this leads me into what I want to discuss this week. So, as you know, Brenda, I am getting ready to have another birthday.
Yes, you are.
And I am turning 44.
Yes.
Which is, I want to go gulp, but it's not
Yeah.
really like gulp like I'm getting older, because I think if I behaved my age, I might feel that way, but I
Right.
certainly don't. And I think there are plenty of people, especially women I've dated, that would agree. But
Hey, at least you're honest.
a little self-deprecation is always a good thing to keep yourself in check.
Right.
But what I wanted to say is this birthday in particular it carries a certain weight with it. And the reason why is because I am turning the same age that my mother was killed at.
Right.
My mother was 44 when she was murdered. And I've been thinking about this my entire life. And it's a little surreal when, I begin to think about this. And then, I know you, Brenda, you have also thought about this because you lost your father at that age.
Yep. He was also 44, which is crazy and ironic that we both have that same connection, losing a parent. And I can't imagine when I hit 44, the feeling that I had was like, whoa, I cannot believe that's how old he was when he left us. Because at that age, I didn't feel like I had lived yet. I had still so much more I wanted to do and see and be, and my son, and I have a son, as well. So, that's just crazy. And I know you're feeling that as well, because you've just really started to live. And
yeah, and I think that's the thing that we were talking about the other day is, this is absolutely, it's such a weird, I'm trying to articulate this properly, but it's such a strange and surreal thing to think about, because here I have spent the majority of my life since my mother, was taken from me and taken from us in this world. Right.
Right.
And it's been spent to sort of not let her death be in vain. Right. And to be able to spread a message and to be able to create something. I mean, the thing is that, and a couple of weeks ago I had interviewed Ray Novoselsky, and Melissa McInnes came on, and one of the listeners that was listening made a really interesting point on YouTube. Mm-hmm. They said, here is a woman seeking justice for her son, and here was a son seeking justice for his mother, and they both their worlds have collided, right?
Yep.
And it's like that has been my whole life, right? And making the film A Murder in Mansfield, talking about the film, traveling around, doing a TED talk, being on television shows, speaking at universities. And then now, as I've morphed into the last, this podcast for the last, half a year, 9 months, really is like the next extension of that. But it's interesting you say, like, I guess I think about it a lot. Like, do I feel like I've really lived?
Right.
I feel like a lot of times when I think about myself and my age and where I am at in life, I feel like I'm just starting again, or I'm just, it's like this. I don't know. It's really hard to explain because, I think about like if I had a normal path, right, that path would look like, okay, you get married, you have a kid, you have kids, and then okay, I mean, if I had children at 25, 26, let's say, to use round numbers, they would be turning 18 right now, you know, or 17. They'd be in high school. And I think that a lot of people, like, when they get to that age, they're like, well, okay, I've done this stuff and now I'm going to have my career, but you know, they have a career for another 20 years or whatever that is. And then they go into retirement and that's what their life looks like.
Right.
Whereas me, I feel like I'm just still starting. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I don't know if that's because of what I've been through or if that's just like, I constantly go back and forth in my head of this weird, like, is this what life is supposed to be? Is this what life is? Am I receiving life how I'm supposed to? But also, like, am I? I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm a little.
Well, you know what? I don't think there is any type of normal anymore, or that there ever was, because everyone's journey is their journey. And we all think that life is going to be a certain way. And if you play by the rules and, you know, you follow the path that you think that you're supposed to have with getting married, having kids, you know, career, college, whatever it might be, that in your world and based on what your parents or your family has taught you that is the normal, that's, you know, what your experience and your perception is. And when that doesn't go like you think it's supposed to, then you feel like there's something wrong with you. And I don't think that's the case. I think everybody's journey is different. And I think that we all end up where we're supposed to, and there's a reason for it. What that reason is, maybe we'll never know. But, you know, you're a good person. You're constantly helping other people. You have an amazing doggie named Blondie who is 17.
Who has a birthday.
Yes.
You know, like a week later.
Yeah.
She'll be 17.
Isn't that crazy? And, you know, and it's like, so you, in a way, do have a child because you've raised her.
Sure.
And she is very set in her ways, and she has her way of doing things. And she is now the boss of you, which is fantastic. And
of course. God
love her. But no, I think that you're doing amazing things. You're on this path now, and you're helping others with your film, with your podcast. And I know your mother would be so proud. I'm sure if she could have a conversation with us, she might say, well, I certainly didn't see that coming, but, you know, what you're doing is amazing. And she would have to, I know that she would laugh if she saw you in Forensic Files when you're on the stand and how animated you are in telling this story. Like, oh no, this happened and it was like this. And you were just very matter of fact and you were going for it. You weren't going to back down for nothing. And
yeah, I was going for it. That's for sure.
You were 12 years old and you solved her murder and you wouldn't take no for an answer. And you were going to make sure that she was avenged, basically, is what I felt. I'm like, there's a little 12-year-old superhero happening right now. And that to me is just amazing. And so as you turn 44, you should be so proud of yourself, because I know she would be. And I wish that I would have known her, because hearing comments like Steve, who worked at Brooks Brothers, remembers her all these years later. Yeah. And, you know, made a point to say something. And so I'm really hoping that more people that are catching on to your podcast and the story and that knew your mom and knew you, I hope they'll reach out and, you know, hit us up on social media and let us know.
I mean,
tell us the stories.
I mean, that's the thing is that's like the one, you know, that's the definitive, like, ancillary benefit of all this is because I don't know all these things, right? And with my family abandoning me, both sides, right? And with that whole situation, it's got its own little whatever, right?
Yes.
But then these people come out of the woodwork with these stories and with this, like how my mother impacted them. And this part of it is like, am I going to have that impact? Will I have that impact? Do I have that impact? Have I had that impact? Or have I had that impact just because of her? Like it's, it's, I don't know. I mean, like when not that I think about this a lot, but like, it is very human to think about our own mortality.
Yes.
I think it's just a very human like quality. We think about our own mortality, but I've been thinking about this same mortality for like 30 years now. And I am just, it's just this whole, am I going to make it to that age? Okay, what is happening? Am I going to die at this age? Am I going to, I mean, it's a real, like, am I going to be killed? Like, that's a real thing that goes through my head. Like, that is, I don't mean to be graphic or dramatic about this, but that is something for sure that literally goes through my head. Am I going to make it to 44? Am I going to make it through 44? Or am I going to be killed? Is there something that's going to happen? Is this like a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is this like a curse? Is this like, I think all of these things just start to they go through my head all the time. And I mean, is this normal? Like, I mean, what do you think, the audience? What do you guys, is this normal? Do you guys think about this type of stuff?
Yeah.
I hope not, but maybe it is more. Maybe I'm way off base and I'm overthinking it. So I'd love to know. I'd love to know in the comments. I'd love to hear your DMs about this, because I'm at a loss, because I don't know what's normal. It's so funny, because speaking of that, like normal thing, is there's a cousin that's on my mother's side that has recently reached out. He saw the New York Post article, right? And like saw the newsstand New York Post article, which is so weird. It's like, oh, you get the newspaper? Wow. I mean, it's just like, that's so crazy. Cool. But he reached out, and he's doing a genealogy about the family. And I had reached out to, so I, over the course of the podcast, because of that, I have started to sort of rekindle a relationship with one of my cousins on my mother's side that I knew growing up. He's a few years older than me. His sisters were the ones that were molested by my father.
Right.
And, as I said, that whole side of the family harbors this complete anger towards not only my father, but also harbors this anger towards me. It makes no sense, but and he was explaining this to me, but he said something to me about, because this same cousin had reached out to him about the genealogy. And he goes, well, don't you think it's like weird? Like some random guy just calls you and says he's related to you, and and it starts asking you, questions, and wants to do a genealogy. You don't think that's strange? And I was like,
no.
my first reaction was like, bro, like, who are you talking to?
Yeah. It's like, do you not know my life?
And the reason why I'm saying that is obviously my perception of things is very abnormal. And like, that doesn't bother me. I don't get creeped out by it. I go, whatever. And look, you have most certainly said to me at times, like, Collier, you're a little too trusting, or Collier, you're like, that person, or whatever it is. Right. So maybe I'm way off. And this is where I'm still trying to figure myself out as an adult. Yeah. is because of what happened to me, what has skewed my view of the world. And I think that I'm very glad that it has not skewed my view of the world in a negative way, where I'm not, doom and gloom, everything is bad, life sucks. I think that everyone gets the fact that sort of my whole message is that things can be better, and you can make it through these,
yes,
challenging adversity, right? At the same time, I'm wondering if it's just because I'm just so mental in that way that like things that should be normal to like the normal human being back and forth every day, I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense, or oh, I'm a little, whereas I'm just so accepting of it, because I just like, there is no sense of normalcy in my life whatsoever.
Right.
And is that something? And as I carry this through to like the next year of my life, and being this, 4-4 year, right? Am I approaching life in the wrong way? Like, should I be more guarded? Was my mother's life taken? I mean, these are the things that I think about. Like, what was she killed because she was too trusting of my father? You know, and I know that she would make jokes with her friends because they told me that she would be like, oh, well, you know, when he shows up that night on December 30th with my grandmother, which is his mother,
Right.
you know, she says, oh, well, Jack, supposedly she said to my aunt, she's like, you know, well, he can't kill me tonight because his mother's here. That was like the last thing she said to her. It's like,
God.
yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, like,
So
I mean, that's my mother's
Was your
sense of
grandmother there when it happened?
Yes, she was. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Grandma.
You know, so it's like wild. I'm just like, okay, and you go, oh, thoughts are things or whatever, self-fulfilling prophecy. But is it like, did she, you know, she made that joke, obviously being cheeky, because my mother had a very good sense of humor about life. And I think that's one of the things that's like been passed on to me. So she could just sort of take a piss at herself and be like, oh, he's not going to kill me tonight because he brought his mother, of course, you know, like who says that, first of all?
Right.
And then it happens. And then it's just, you know, and I make jokes about stuff like that all the time. Like, you know, even when I think about, like, I go mountain biking, I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to go try to, you know, break my neck on the mountain or whatever. I'll try not to die today.
Right.
But maybe I shouldn't say things like that. Maybe, I don't know. I mean,
I know. That's why I brought up the life alert. You need to take something that will like send a beacon out if something happens to you.
I do use the Strava app. Strava app does that.
Okay, good.
All my friends I ride with, we all do it. If we're going out riding, it sends this little thing. We have our little buddy list. It tracks everything. So
good.
The marvels of modern GPS are at work. But no, but seriously, getting back to what I was saying. So these are the things that are constantly going through my head. Like, as I'm sort of staring down the barrel of this new year, right? Is this all I'm meant to be on this planet? Like, is it 44 or bust? Or 44 and bust? Or is it 45 or bust? You know, or is it, you know, I mean, I'm most certainly not ready to check out. I feel like there's a lot more to do, because I feel like I'm just starting my life. Like, I feel like, okay, I made the film a few years ago, and then that was like, okay, that's done. Okay, check off that list. Okay, did that. Okay, great. Okay, you know, that was like 2019 when that was done. Yeah. You know, like, it was right before the pandemic. Then we go into a pandemic. So that, you know, then that's a thing. And then it's like, now I'm on the other side of that, you know, or I think we're all collectively on the other side of that. I hope so. Geez. Or getting there. Right. You know, and then there's this whole other thing of, okay, now I've started the podcast. Okay. So check this off the list. Okay. These are the things that I'm doing, and it's reaching people, it's impacting, and okay, let's write some books. Okay. Let's do that. Okay, good. Check that. Am I running out of things to check off the list? Should I start expanding the list, or does the list end at 44? Like, these are the things that constantly go through my head. And I don't know if this is because of trauma. Like, are there other people that think about these types of things that go through trauma? Because I feel like, me personally, and I was talking about this on an interview the other day, but I just remember being asleep, December 31st, 1989. I hear the footsteps of my father walk down the hall, and they stop at my doorstep, and my door was always open when I was asleep. I always left my door open. I still do. And I could, as I'm snuggled there as a little boy, I'm looking this way, and it's just after I heard the thuds and the scream and everything. And I'm laying there just frozen, and I'm just looking at my peripheral vision, and I can see feet in the doorway. And I keep thinking about, if I just did, and I know that's, you know, dramatic or whatever, but if I just looked up, would I even be here?
Yeah, I wonder.
And this is the shit that I think about all the time, every day. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about, like, what happens? What if? What, you know, so I'm already feeling like I'm on borrowed time from 11 years old on. Because I'm thinking, okay, and then I think about the second time, my father, you know, wanting to take me to Florida after I had been working with, you know, the police and Lieutenant Messmore, and found the picture of the house where they found my mother's body, and all this, like, while all this is in progress. And then I realized that I think my father has, like, figured this out, because I was doing all this as he was in transit back and forth from, Erie, Pennsylvania, right, to Mansfield, Ohio, which is like a 5 hour drive, I guess. So as he started to figure it out, so then is that like, it's like a cat has 9 lives. Okay, so didn't look up in the doorway. Okay, great, that's done. Okay, then didn't go to Florida with him because I got yanked out by Children's Services, protective services. So that didn't happen because I was scared that he was going to kill me, that he had found me out, because I was literally living for 25 days or 25 days in that house, constantly under duress. Like, he's going to figure this out and I'm going to be next. And I'm trying to put on this facade of like that I don't know anything, or that I believe his story of mommy, rushing. I can remember, and I don't even know if I've ever talked about this. I can remember my father sitting down to like do a brainstorm session with me about, and my grandmother, about all the places that my mother could have gone. Right. Like all these places that she could have, could be. And I remember saying, mommy always wanted to go to Toronto and go shopping. So maybe she went to Toronto, Canada. He's like, oh, she's probably in Toronto. Like all these like things that were happening, knowing that he had murdered her, knowing that that was a thing that he had done, a crime that he had committed. And he's just like playing on with it. And and I think about all this, and then, there have been viewers and there have been people that have asked me over the years, like, at the same time, do you feel that that you could do this to another human because your father did it? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I could do that. I don't think it's in my DNA. I don't feel like it's in my DNA, but technically it is in my DNA, right? So does that mean at age 46 or 47, I'm going to go to prison for something? Yeah. So these are the things that I constantly think about. I think that this is something that is like a side effect of trauma. You constantly, I mean, this is the shit I think about. I want to do a book called The Shit I Think About. This is the shit I think about on a consistent basis of just I don't know what to say.
I'm sure everyone has, strange thoughts or wonders, my gosh, my parents were like this. I wonder if I'm going to be that way. And, and I wondered the same thing about, when my son was born, who is he going to be most like? Of course, I'm really happy that he's my mini me. And,
yeah, he
so
is.
that may, that's great. He totally is. But you just don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know what the future holds. We can't, determine the future or predict the future. We just have to go with each day by day and try to live our best life and try to be our best selves. And that's all we have control over. The rest of it, we have no control over. We could get hit by a bus tomorrow. You just don't know. And I don't think I'd want to know. Because then you'd be obsessing over it. Oh, geez, I'm going to die this year on this day. And then that's all you would think about. You wouldn't think about all the things that you want to do or, fun things. And you'd be obsessed with the negative and how it ends.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I wonder if people that lose a parent normally, like, and by normal, I mean, the parent passes, which is not normal, but like they get into a car accident, they die. So then if that happened when the parent was 38 or something, and these people were turning 38, do they think about that? I would think so, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think, even though I feel like so abnormal in my thought process, I don't think it's as abnormal as I think it is. It's just, I think my circumstance is a lot different, but right. I think that perhaps anyone could sort of get down that rabbit hole.
It's very true. I mean, here we both have parents that passed at 44 years old, and my grandma is 102 and still going. So, you just don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone knows in this podcast that it sometimes gets dark and deep
Yes.
and dark, and
So-
we don't want to disappoint.
Yes. We kind of go there, don't we?
We don't want to disappoint.
So
And,
reach out to us and tell us some positive stories. And
For sure, I want to hear all the
Yes.
positive stories. Brenda, your phone died.
sorry, stupid phone rang.
Oh, the phone rang. Oh, yeah, you got to turn that off. Yeah. So,
So I think now, like, if there are people out there that knew your mom and have stories that they can share with you that they can reach out about, I think this would be a great way to celebrate her 40,
celebrate my
her
44th.
birthday this year. Your 44th, and
My mother's birthday. So I'm born on February 28th. She was born on September 28th.
September 28th. That's right.
Yeah.
So, with your birthday,
And I think
'cause
my
it's your
dog,
birthday
and I
month.
think my dog that we had was born on like August 28th. And I remember my mom used to make a joke that Collier was born on the 28th. She was born on September 28th. The dog was born on the 28th, and then my father was born on May 1st.
he's not part of the club. Sorry.
He wasn't part of the cool kids club, and he knew
He
it.
just wasn't.
So
Yeah, never was, never will be, but that's okay.
I'm sure I will get an email from him for my birthday,
Yes.
which we'll have to read on the podcast.
Yes, maybe you should remind him.
And I need to get back to reading my father's letters too, which we're going to do in very upcoming future episodes for sure, because those, when I do get when I do get feedback from you guys, everyone responds to those letters so much because they seem to really give you guys a peek into the world of sociopathy and psychopathy and narcissism and sadly these things speak to a lot of you guys, because a lot of you guys are struggling with things and dealing with that type of behavior is exhausting. It's confusing and it is frustrating. And it's just any little bit of a window that I can give you into that behavior that helps you guys or helps anyone makes me feel really good, for sure. But yeah.
I know.
Anyways.
And I know we all love, getting the comments, and every once in a while when someone mentions me in something, I'm like, oh, well, they even noticed? What? Wait, thank you.
You're funny.
Somebody missed me? I know. It's exciting to have people speak up and talk about, anything at this point. We just love hearing from people. And I know you especially, from family members that you didn't know were really out there that are reaching out now. And I love that so much for you.
It's really cool. It's a very cool
really
thing.
cool.
I think my mother, one of them wrote me over the weekend and said, I was thinking about this after I listened to your last episode, and I think your mother would be really happy that I reached out to you. And I was like, yeah, of course she would.
Yeah, she would.
I was like, you were actually questioning that? And like, were you serious? Like, so it's just all a really good thing to be able to just hear from these people that were in my life in a lot of ways that I didn't even realize were there, that were still wondering and caring. Just like this gentleman who worked at the Columbus City Center, which my mom loved to go to. I don't even know if it's even there anymore. I think they might have torn it down for all I know. It was a mall in Columbus, Ohio. But yeah, hearing these things, it just, I don't know. It makes me feel very close to her. And that's cool.
So thanks, Steve.
Cool. Thank you, Steve. Steve Kerfus.
Yes.
Well, on that note, I'm Collier Landry.
And I'm Brenda Fisher.
And this is Moving Past Murder. Thanks, y'all. This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible. Find us on YouTube, youtube.com/Collier Landry. All of these help support the conversations. And if you want to go a step further, we do have a Patreon page. We also have a PayPal link to donate to the program, which helps keep the lights on and keeps us delivering the material that I feel speaks best to you, my audience. The film A Murder in Mansfield is available on Investigation Discovery, Discovery Plus, and Amazon Prime Video. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio in association with RSA Entertainment.